Todd Chrisley once said that he had nothing to apologize for. He said this even after a jury found him guilty on every charge against him. He said it after his wife Julie was sent to a different prison, after they spent more than 2 years without hearing each other's voices, and after their children were left to deal with the consequences. They were ordered to pay $17 million in restitution, and that debt did not disappear. Even when a presidential pardon later allowed them to walk free, the damage had already been done. Julie came out of prison with a lung condition that she said was caused by black mold inside the facility. Todd came out still refusing to say he was sorry. Their story is still not finished. Todd Chrisley was born on April 6, 1969, in Georgia. His full name at birth was Michael Todd Chrisley, but he always went by Todd. Although he was born in Georgia, his real childhood began after his family moved to Westminster, South Carolina, a small town with fewer than 3,000 people. That quiet town near the Blue Ridge Mountains became the place that shaped him. He grew up with strict Southern values and attended Westminster High School. Instead of going to college, he decided to start working as soon as he could. He believed that real success came from hard work, not from sitting in a classroom. His parents, Jean Raymond Chrisley and Elizabeth Faye Chrisley, raised Todd and his brothers with discipline and strong rules. They believed in respect, responsibility, and working hard for everything you had. Todd's loud and confident personality that people later saw on television was built on those early lessons. But his childhood also included deep sadness. Todd had an older brother named Derek who was born in June 1971 and died only 4 months later in October of the same year. Todd was just 2 years old at the time, too young to understand the pain around him. Still, that loss affected the family deeply. It made their parents more protective of Todd and his younger brother Randy. The tragedy was rarely discussed openly, but it left a lasting mark on their home. Todd often spoke about how hard his mother worked. She spent 60 hours a week in a textile mill, working long days in heat and cotton dust surrounded by loud machines. She left home before sunrise and returned after dark. Todd remembered watching her come home tired but still focused on her family. In 2020, he shared a childhood photo and thanked his mother for working so hard to provide for them. Seeing her struggle taught him that money did not come easily and that family should always come first. That belief stayed with him as he grew older. Not far from Todd's home, Julie Hughes was growing up in the same small town. She was born on January 9, 1973. Her family lived in a double-wide trailer, and life was simple. Her father, Harvey Hughes, worked many different jobs. He started as a mechanic at age 13, later worked for Advance Auto Parts, then became an electrician, and in 1978 he became an ordained Baptist minister. Julie's mother, Pam, worked as a bank teller to help support the family. Faith was central to their lives. They attended Faith Baptist Church, where Harvey eventually became pastor. Julie grew up surrounded by church services, home-cooked meals, and strong religious values. Even though they did not have much money, her childhood was steady and grounded. Todd and Julie's lives crossed in the early 1990s. At the time, Julie was working at a local bank owned by one of Todd's friends. Todd was going through a difficult divorce from his high school sweetheart, Teresa Terry, when he walked into the bank and saw Julie wearing a yellow dress. He later said she was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen and that she touched his soul in a way no one else had. Their relationship moved quickly. They married on May 25, 1996, when Julie was already 9 months pregnant. Her life changed overnight. She went from being a bank employee in a small town to becoming part of a family that would later become famous across the country. Before Julie, Todd had married Teresa Terry. They met when she was 17 and he was 19. Their relationship developed quickly, and when Teresa became pregnant at 19 with their daughter Lindsay, they decided to marry. Todd was 21 and unsure, but they believed marriage was the right choice. Later they had a son named Kyle. What began as young love eventually turned into a painful relationship. Teresa later described the marriage as controlling and frightening. She said Todd controlled how she dressed, where she went, and who she spoke to. She claimed he isolated her from friends and family and created an environment of fear. Teresa described specific incidents that were especially terrifying. In October 1994, she said Todd hit her while she was driving, forcing her to pull over and run away. When she returned home later, she found her jewelry missing and herself locked out of the house. In early November, she said he threatened her with a knife and she fled to a neighbor's home for 3 days. She claimed that when she returned, he beat her while she was naked. Teresa filed charges and requested a protection order, saying she feared for her life. The court ordered Todd to stay 1,000 feet away from her. Their divorce was finalized in 1996, but she said the problems continued through co-parenting conflicts. During this same period, Teresa claimed Todd had already begun seeing Julie and that Julie was pregnant before the divorce was finalized. The situation became even more complicated when Teresa started dating someone else. She said Todd recorded her with a camera and sent footage to a television special about unfaithful wives, even though he had already moved on. The divorce left lasting tension between the families. In the late 1990s, Todd began building wealth through real estate. He bought distressed homes, renovated them, and sold them for profit. The business grew quickly. In 1996, he created Chrisley Asset Management, a company that managed non-performing assets for banks. By obtaining foreclosure information from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, he was able to flip homes in high volume. Between 2007 and 2012, Todd and Julie secured about $36 million in loans from community banks in the Atlanta area. At their peak, they reportedly earned more than $600,000 per month. Todd appeared to be a successful real estate businessman. Todd sold Chrisley Asset Management in 2005 when it was doing well. However, years later this timing became important in a fraud case. Investigators later found that after selling the company, Todd and Julie continued to obtain more than $36 million in personal loans by submitting false financial documents and fake bank statements. They claimed to have a Merrill Lynch account with large amounts of money, but investigators discovered Todd did not even have such an account at the time. When one was later opened, it never contained more than $17,000. Todd used new loans to pay off older loans. By August 2012, Todd filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy, walking away from more than $20 million in debt. His paperwork listed $4.2 million in assets and $49.4 million in debt. The financial gap was enormous. Even so, Todd continued building new business ideas. In the 2010s, he launched a luxury real estate company called Chrisley & Company. He also spoke publicly about opening a high-end department store in New York City and even filmed scenes about signing a lease and developing clothing lines. Behind the scenes, however, he told bankruptcy courts he was in severe financial trouble. The department store project eventually disappeared without explanation. In 2014, the reality show Chrisley Knows Best premiered on USA Network. On television, Todd appeared as a wealthy millionaire living in a massive mansion in Roswell, Georgia. He claimed the family spent $300,000 a year on clothing. However, he had recently lost a $9 million property in Buckhead to foreclosure and had filed for bankruptcy. The difference between his television image and his real finances attracted attention from the IRS. The situation worsened when a real estate development loan he had guaranteed failed, leaving him responsible for $30 million. Combined with mortgage debt and IRS debt, his total obligations reached $49.4 million while his assets remained far lower. His bankruptcy filing claimed he had only $55 in his checking account and $100 in cash. Although he boasted about expensive clothing, his legal documents valued his wardrobe at only $650. These contradictions caused investigators to look deeper. A bankruptcy trustee began investigating in 2014 and found evidence that assets may have been transferred into Julie's name to protect them from creditors. Investigators found a condominium worth about $500,000 transferred to Julie after a large legal judgment. They also discovered undisclosed assets, including luxury clothing, jewelry, and bank stock transfers. In 2015, Todd settled the bankruptcy dispute for $150,000, less than 1% of what he owed. Even then, he failed to complete payments on time. Around this period, a woman named Annie Kate Pons entered the story. In 2009, she met Todd after leaving her job at Fox News and trying to start a baby clothing business. Instead of buying her products, Todd offered her a job as a buyer for his planned luxury department store. She agreed and even traveled to New York Fashion Week, meeting designers and preparing for a store that never opened. Todd owed her $10,000 that she never received. She later discovered he had been in bankruptcy during that time but had not told her. Although the business failed, Annie could not forget the Chrisley family's dramatic personality. She believed they would make perfect reality television stars. She created a short promotional video highlighting Todd's loud humor and the family's glamorous yet chaotic lifestyle. She presented the idea to 10 television networks. Surprisingly, 9 made offers. In December 2013, USA Network won the bidding war and purchased the show. What began as unpaid debt and a failed store idea turned into a reality television empire that would bring fame, attention, and eventually even greater controversy to the Chrisley family. The success of the show was so strong that experienced executive producers Adam Greener, Jim Sayer, and Stephanie Chambers joined the project. Production was handled by Maverick TV and All3 Media America. Annie Kate Pons only worked on the first season, but she kept her producer credit. That credit earned her about $200,000 every year for as long as the show continued. In the end, she received far more than the $10,000 Todd had originally failed to pay her. When Chrisley Knows Best premiered on March 11, 2014, it quickly became a hit. The show ranked among the top 20 new reality series for viewers between the ages of 18 and 49 and also 25 and 54. By the end of the first season in April 2014, the finale attracted 1.5 million viewers, including 890,000 in the important 18 to 49 age group. The second season premiered in October 2014 with 1.62 million viewers, which was a 64% increase from the first season premiere. The show focused on Todd's wealthy Southern lifestyle, his expensive suits, his strict parenting style, and his strong need to control everything around him. The popularity of the show led to a spin-off called Growing Up Chrisley in 2019. The original series lasted for 9 seasons and ended on March 27, 2023. While the family appeared successful on television, their private life was filled with serious problems. In 2013, Todd's son Kyle was 23 years old when he was arrested for felony aggravated assault after a violent incident involving Angela Johnson, the mother of his daughter Chloe, who was only 1 year old at the time. Kyle had been struggling with addiction for years, and the arrest made it clear that he was not able to safely raise his daughter. Todd and Julie immediately stepped in and filed for custody because they believed Chloe needed stability and protection. Within weeks, the court granted them shared custody, and Chloe began living with them in Nashville. Angela Johnson initially cooperated with the arrangement. However, by 2016, Kyle's addiction had become worse. He could not stay sober, and the court determined that the environment was unsafe. Angela confirmed Kyle's drug problems in court. That year, a judge granted Todd and Julie full custody of Chloe, removing Kyle's legal rights until he could prove long-term sobriety. Around the same time, Chloe disappeared from Chrisley Knows Best. She stopped appearing on the show after the 3rd season. Kyle, despite losing custody, threatened to sue USA Network because he did not want his daughter shown on television. Even though he no longer had legal rights, his threats caused problems for the production. As a result, the network removed Chloe from the show to avoid legal issues. By late 2016, Todd and Julie made a final decision. After years of hoping Kyle would recover and eventually parent Chloe himself, they chose to adopt her legally. Savannah later explained that the adoption was not finalized until 1 or 2 months before Todd and Julie reported to prison in January 2023. Todd had always hoped Kyle would change, but when that hope faded, they completed the adoption. Chloe later said it was the best day of her life because she always felt that she truly belonged with them. While they were trying to protect one child, another serious conflict was developing within the family. On August 13, 2019, the same day Todd and Julie were indicted on federal charges including fraud and tax evasion, Todd publicly accused his oldest daughter Lindsay of having affairs with Robbie Hayes and Josh Murray, both known from The Bachelorette. Todd claimed the relationships began in 2016 and said the family had tried to keep the situation private. Josh Murray quickly responded, saying the family should focus on avoiding prison instead of attacking their own daughter. The timing of Todd's accusation shocked many people because it happened on the exact day the federal charges became public. Lindsay shared a different version of events. She said she and Robbie Hayes had been unknowingly recorded by a puppy cam security camera inside a friend's apartment while they were sitting on a couch together. Hayes confirmed that they were not aware of the camera. Lindsay claimed that her brother Chase later tried to obtain the footage and even paid $5,000 for it through one of her former friends. She said Todd warned her that Chase had a tape she would not want to see. When she told him that selling such footage would be criminal, she said Todd responded that it would only be a civil matter and advised her to be careful. On July 16, 2019, Lindsay filed a police report claiming that her family was threatening and harassing her. She later contacted the FBI because she feared the footage would be released, especially since she had reconciled with her husband Will. She said she never consented to being recorded and did not know a camera was present. Her lawyer described Todd's behavior as unacceptable. However, Georgia authorities dismissed the case because the alleged threats happened in Tennessee, which created jurisdiction issues. As the federal case moved forward, Lindsay's fear appeared to grow. On August 13, 2019, she sent an email to the FBI saying she was truly afraid and asking for help in getting a restraining order. She accused Todd of harassment, blackmail, and threats. She also told officials at the Georgia Department of Revenue that her father was involved in financial crimes. Prosecutors later used these messages to argue that Todd's treatment of his daughter showed a pattern of harmful behavior. However, in May 2022, during the criminal trial, Lindsay's position changed completely. She testified in court and defended Todd. She told the jury that he had always put his children and wife first. When prosecutors showed her the emails in which she had called him a horrible person, she claimed she no longer believed he was involved in any plan related to a tape. She said it had all been a misunderstanding. Her sudden change frustrated prosecutors so much that the judge criticized her for contradicting her earlier statements. Prosecutors later argued that Todd had manipulated her into rejoining the family so she would testify on his behalf. During the trial, another surprising revelation came from Mark Braddock. He testified that he and Todd had a romantic relationship in the early 2000s that lasted about a year. Braddock said he developed strong emotional feelings for Todd. He admitted that he committed fraud on behalf of the Chrisleys, created fake financial documents, and impersonated Todd in emails. He said he acted out of loyalty and emotional attachment. In 2012, Todd ended his business relationship with Braddock by locking him out of the office and threatening to have him arrested. After that, Braddock turned against the family. He created fake email accounts and sent damaging information to media outlets and government agencies. Todd's lawyer argued that Braddock was obsessed and angry, but his testimony became a key part of the prosecution's case. One major piece of evidence involved a completely fake Merrill Lynch statement showing $4 million in Todd's account. At that time, Todd did not even have a Merrill Lynch account. When he later opened one in 2008, it never contained more than $17,000. Investigators found digital edits on Google Drive and linked some of the changes to Julie. These fake statements were used to secure large loans from banks that believed the Chrisleys were wealthy and financially stable. Between 2006 and 2012, the couple received more than $30 million in fraudulent loans. They spent the money on luxury cars, designer clothes, expensive homes, and trips. They used new loans to pay off old loans, creating a cycle that resembled a Ponzi scheme. When everything fell apart, Todd filed for bankruptcy and eliminated more than $20 million in debt. During the same time, they launched their reality show and allegedly hid income by placing money in accounts under Julie's name to prevent the IRS from collecting unpaid taxes. When an anonymous person threatened to expose both the alleged affair and the financial fraud, Braddock withdrew 4 separate payments of $9,500 each, totaling $38,000. Each payment was just below the $10,000 reporting limit. He handed the cash to Todd in a parking garage, hoping to stop the blackmailer. Later, Braddock's testimony revealed this plan. Their accountant, Peter Tarantino, also became involved. He was accused of lying to federal agents, filing false corporate tax returns, and helping hide income. He was tried alongside Todd and Julie, convicted, and sentenced to 3 years in prison. In August 2019, Todd and Julie faced 12 federal charges including bank fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy, and tax evasion. After a 3-week trial in June 2022, the jury found them guilty on every count. Prosecutors showed evidence that they submitted fake financial statements to obtain over $30 million in loans and avoided nearly $2 million in state taxes between 2008 and 2016. They also used a shell company called 7CS Productions to hide income from the IRS. In November 2022, United States District Judge Eleanor Ross sentenced Todd to 12 years in federal prison and Julie to 7 years. They were ordered to pay $17,270,741.57 in restitution. Todd was ordered to forfeit $17 million, and Julie was ordered to forfeit $4.74 million. Their accountant received a 3-year sentence. The judge warned that their homes might be seized because they would not be able to afford them. On January 17, 2023, Todd and Julie reported to separate federal prisons. Todd went to a minimum security facility in Pensacola, Florida. Julie was sent to the Federal Medical Center in Lexington, Kentucky. For more than 2 years, they were not allowed to speak to each other because Todd's warden did not approve their communication request, even though Julie's warden agreed. Emails were often delayed, and Julie was limited to only 10 minutes of phone time per day for family calls. In February 2025, Savannah told People magazine that her parents had not spoken since the day they entered prison. During this time, Savannah became the legal guardian of her 17-year-old brother Grayson and 11-year-old niece Chloe. At 27, she felt overwhelmed but continued fighting for her parents' release. She used her podcast and television interviews to criticize the length of their combined 19-year sentence. She spoke about the emotional impact on the children and wrote letters asking judges for mercy. Her efforts eventually reached President Donald Trump. On May 27, 2025, he called Savannah to inform her that he would pardon both Todd and Julie. With criminal justice reform advocate Alice Marie Johnson standing beside him, he said their parents would be free and that the paperwork would be completed the next day. Soon after, official statements confirmed that full pardons had been signed. After more than 2 years apart without speaking, Todd and Julie were released. However, freedom did not erase everything. Julie said she developed a lung condition while at the Federal Medical Center in Lexington. She blamed black mold and asbestos exposure for her breathing problems and said she now required treatment from a lung specialist. Todd claimed that inmates were forced to clean contaminated areas without proper protective equipment and that the prison conditions caused long-term health issues. Even though they were pardoned, the restitution amount of more than $17 million remained. Prosecutors attempted to seize a $1 million settlement the couple received from the Georgia Department of Revenue to help pay the debt. If they fail to pay the full amount, they are required to make monthly payments of at least $1,000 during supervised release. After his release, Todd publicly refused to apologize. He said he had nothing to be sorry for because he did not believe he committed fraud. He questioned whether the jury truly represented his peers and said he refused to feel shame. He also claimed that Mark Braddock had hacked his email accounts and fabricated many of the documents used as evidence in court. His refusal to accept responsibility surprised many viewers, but it showed that he had no intention of changing his story or admitting wrongdoing.